What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So over the weekend, something interesting was spotted that could actually be signaling a pretty big game going to the next generation system from Nintendo, but we'll get into that more here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Mortal Kombat 1 as it is on the Switch, and it has some interesting results, and we did get a response from Unity after all of the backlash online, and it still leaves me with many questions of the path forward for this engine. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton, and if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Xbox and Game Pass, specifically the number of subscribers that Microsoft has on that service, with the last number that was revealed to the public and investors being 25 million. Well, in a recent LinkedIn post that was made, and you can see this over on Windows Central, it was mentioned that it's at 30 million subscribers. This was from the Xbox Senior Marketing Director, Craig McNary, but there was an update to their listing that appeared to remove the 30 million, and it seems like we're still back to that 25 million mark, as Microsoft even reiterated to Windows Central that is still the number that they're going with, at least the public-facing number. Of course, it's different, I'm sure, behind the scenes, but this is very important in that they also took Xbox Live Gold and essentially rebranded it as Game Pass Core. So when they do eventually give us an update on numbers, they'll probably pair that together and just say Game Pass, and it'll probably be 60 to 70 million. And in their mind, it's a massive improvement, even though nothing necessarily changed. Although I guess Xbox Live Gold does have like a miniature version of Game Pass with the number of games on demand that are just part of that. So it's better than Xbox Live Gold, but yeah, them technically moving around the name is how they're going to get to that mark, not necessarily building up their $16 per month Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription. Also, something pretty cool has been happening over the last couple of weeks, and that has to do with Titanfall 2, as it went on sale on Steam. It was like $7 or $8 or something, and the player count started to rise all of a sudden. In fact, it got to a point now where there have been updates that are issued by Respawn and EA to fix different bugs that have been brought up, as well as playlist updates, and in a way, it kind of feels like Titanfall is back. Like, I jumped on the Xbox and played Titanfall 2, found different players to match up with and everything. While that is on Game Pass, it is still nice to see that those servers are active enough to where you can have full matches, and it's still a lot of fun. So if you've never played Titanfall 2, one, the campaign is really cool, but the multiplayer is still a ton of fun. So yeah, I recommend checking it out. And if you don't have it on PC, as long as it's on sale, it's like $7 or $8. But otherwise, it's in Game Pass. And it does make me wonder if we could see the next. I know Titanfall 3 has been mentioned here and there, and it sounded like it was on the back burner, but even EA has to kind of notice, okay, maybe there is still a bit of an audience for this game. I'm on board if they want to do Titanfall 3, though. I think it'd be awesome to see. Oh, and we did have a bit of a celebration over the weekend for Grand Theft Auto 5 that never seems to leave the sales charts, as it has turned 10 years old. This was a post that was made over on Twitter, which is hilarious because it almost seemed like we were getting an update as to what's after GTA 5, but no, here it is. This from Rockstar Games. Celebrate 10 years of Grand Theft Auto 5 in GTA Online this week with a trio of outfits. Okay, sure, there you go. But it is wild to think that it has actually been 10 years, with that September 17th, 2013, since this game came out, and that's still the latest Grand Theft Auto that we have. So I'm hoping we're coming up on GTA 6's release and all this in the next couple of years, but GTA 5 keeps selling. Even 10 years later, it's generally still in like the top 5 for some of these different sales charts all across the world. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Unity, as this has been an ongoing story all of last week, and it got even more interesting yesterday with a statement that was issued by Unity. But first, just a quick recap. They have decided to change their revenue sharing model with publishers and developers. Here's a quick chart, which you can see that it generally starts with about 20 cents per install, and then it can work its way down depending on the number of new installs per month, down to, it looks like if you have Unity Enterprise, 1 cent per install. But for the most part, you're going to see smaller indie studios probably work in that we'll say 15 cent to 10 cent range, somewhere in there, right? I mean, 20 cents would be the worst case scenario, but it's definitely possible, as it appears that if a person decides to uninstall your game, reinstall it, get bored, uninstall it, reinstall it again later on, those all count as new installs. And one of the big issues that came up was the idea of subscription services like Game Pass that will lead to a ton of installs that count against your quota that eventually has you paying up. Well, Unity has been trying to answer these things back and forth, updating their Q&A and even responding outright to people with some questionable answers, even going to Microsoft, Nintendo, or Sony for money. I'm curious still how that'll turn out, but we can see this message that was posted over on Twitter from Unity, where they say, "We have heard you. We apologize for the confusion and angst the runtime fee policy we announced on Tuesday caused. We are listening, talking to our team members, community, customers, and partners, and we'll be making changes to the policy. We will share an update in a couple of days. Thank you for your honest and critical feedback." Now, this garnered a ton of responses online, quote, tweets, responses, all kinds of stuff, because it still doesn't appear very clear what their plan is going forward. And I gotta admit, I have no idea where they take this thing that will end well for them, because at this point, they've already burned a lot of bridges with developers and publishers, and probably even platform holders. There's a good chance that one of the reasons they decided to make this tweet, like just say, "Hey, we're working on something here, we're gonna try to fix this," whether it's reversing course completely or changing up terms, is because maybe they did talk to platform holders like Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft, and they said, "We're not paying that. We just won't host any of these games." There's also a chance that some other like larger stores, whether it's a Steam or whoever, that they could end up involved, just say, "We're just not going to have Unity games on our platform." These are all possibilities that we don't know for sure, but it seems like something other than just the general backlash has gotten to Unity. It could also be that, oh wow, a lot of developers have said that they're not going to be using us going forward. Some even going as far to stop 2 or 3 years into development to shift over to something else like Unreal, which is Unreal Engine's a big competitor to Unity. None of this seems like a good idea for Unity trying to grow and just become a better, more used engine. It just seems like, okay, if we whittle it down to like a handful of publishers or developers that are willing to use us at this pay per install rate, maybe the revenue will even out. So I'll be curious to see what exactly their plan is, I guess sometime this week when they issue that blog post. And I'm not really sure how because they can't go back necessarily even to what they had, because the trust has been lost, and that's a response I saw a lot from different developers on Twitter. Why would we use this when you could just change this while we're midway through a 5-year development cycle? It just doesn't make any sense. We'll go somewhere else, and that, I think, is what's happening in droves and forcing this kind of a response. So we'll see what Unity has to say, but just the future of this engine specifically, not looking very good. Next up, let's talk about Nintendo and a game that may have leaked out a bit early for going to their next generation device. At least that's something that's popping up a lot online right now, and you'll probably see different headlines and stuff, especially throughout this week, centering around the idea of Baldur's Gate 3 being developed, or at least a port being developed, for the Nintendo Switch 2, we'll call it right now. And a lot of this has to do with a single credit in the special thanks section for Baldur's Gate 3. I'm serious. Take a look at this. This was posted up on fan boards and then started to make the rounds, rapidly hitting Reddit and other social media platforms. And this, we can see, says, "Atsushi Lizuka, Nintendo employee, is credited under special thanks of Larian Baldur's Gate 3. Now, they are credited under many games, and a lot of them are essentially them getting stuff to the Switch. Some, of course, being games that were developed internally with Nintendo alongside of partners like Bandai and stuff, but others are just outright from like Square Enix or anything like that. So they do appear to at least be working in conjunction with outside studios to get these games on the platform. Now, my only thing with this, as there's also a little screen of I guess the credit and everything for them there. My only thing with this is the special thanks section of credits can be for anything. They don't have to necessarily correspond with them on any of it, not even contact them. Maybe something they did just influence them. Maybe they're like, oh wow, these are some great ideas, and we're gonna use this in some part of a quest line or something, and we want to pay homage to whatever they have done in the past, and we'll put them in a special thing. It can be all kinds of little things that they credit them for there. Now, is it possible that Baldur's Gate 3 could go to Nintendo's next system? Yeah, it absolutely is, because I think Baldur's Gate 3 is a game that's going to be supported for quite a while. Like definitely into the next Nintendo system's life, especially if we think it's coming out at the end, we'll say, of 2024. Yeah, Baldur's Gate 3 will still be rolling along really, really well. I'm sure there'll be more content, updates. It's very, very successful right now for Lariat. I don't know why they would just drop everything and move on. So this will probably turn into a game with all kinds of additional content that maybe gets packaged into a complete edition and so on. But I don't think it's something that would be lined up well for the current Switch, as that is certainly showing its age and some of its limitations with different games, which we'll get into here in a minute with a recently released title. So I think really they would be targeting the next platform, but I don't know if I would look at this and say that's it. I guess Baldur's Gate 3 is going to the next Nintendo system because of this one line in the special thanks section. Honestly, it could be someone's friend or something. They're like, wow, they really got me through this. I want to drop some sort of note for them in the credits. But hey, we'll see. I'm thinking we're going to hear from Nintendo probably in the next 6-7 months to showcase their new system, and part of that will probably be games alongside of it. So maybe Baldur's Gate 3 is there, but I don't think it's necessarily because we're seeing a special thanks section in Baldur's Gate 3 popping up. Next up, let's talk about Mortal Kombat 1 on the Switch, and there have been a lot of comparisons made with different screenshots, specifically of character models from the Switch version to, say, the PlayStation 5 version. And that's because the character models are comically bad in the Switch version. Like, it's very obvious that there were a lot of cutbacks made to get this game not only running on the Switch, but running at 60 frames per second, as you would expect from a fighting game like Mortal Kombat 1. There are different analysis videos also posted up. I'll be curious to see Digital Foundry's when they release theirs. But for example, this one was dropped by Debits, and they also went through the resolution. Like, for example, the Switch docked dynamic 900p. It tends to be around 720p and 640p. Handheld mode is interesting, as it's a dynamic 720p that seems to sit around 480p as the common resolution. But again, the big thing are the character models. However, there was a day one patch that was released, and some have been mentioning that they at least updated an attempt to fix some of these character models. But something interesting was a lot of stuff was added through the day one patch. Like, they enabled additional character cameo for the roster, additional arenas, customization, enables full tutorials, towers, tournament modes, the story. Like, it seems like a lot, even online gameplay was enabled through this day one patch that was also quite sizable. So it's like several gigabytes for this patch. So almost feels like they made you download a good chunk of the game with that one. So make sure you have that day one patch, I guess, installed. But really, looking at the Switch version after what we saw from Mortal Kombat 11 that had these exact same comparisons made and things mentioned online with screenshots side by side of more powerful versions like the PlayStation 4 Pro and all of that, it's the Switch. Like, it's doing the best that it can. However, I think a case is made when you look at the price point at $70 for the Switch and $70 on the Xbox and the PlayStation. It's the same. Now, I guess with the Switch, you could say, oh, it has a hybrid concept, but that does seem to come up a lot as really what the value proposition would be. And then you also look at the visuals and go, okay, well, that's definitely a major drawback to get to that point. I will say this kind of reminds me of the Vita version. If you looked at the Vita version of Mortal Kombat 9 when it came out, didn't look great when you blew it up, but it was fine and it worked well enough when it was in handheld mode. And that's kind of how I'm considering this one. This is the Vita version of Mortal Kombat 1, just on the Switch. But hey, Nintendo's next system coming up in the next year or so. Maybe we'll get an update for Mortal Kombat 1, as again, this is a game that I think will be supported for quite some time based on what we saw with Mortal Kombat 11. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Spider-Man 2, as last Friday, a bunch of hands-on previews dropped online from major outlets. IGN had a pretty good video going over it, although I did notice some stuff in there that people might look at and go, okay, that feels like a story spoiler, whether it's some characters that were shown or different story events. Nonetheless, I went through it to check it out, and I'm very excited for Spider-Man 2 right now. I think When it comes out on the 20th, which comes out same day as Mario Wonder, I'm going right to Spider-Man 2. I have to see how this story plays out, because I think there's some red herrings in there too that they're trying to play up, specifically the identity of Venom. Nonetheless, you can see a bit of IGN here with their hands-on preview, and also I'll drop a link down in the sources to Marvel, as they posted up an entire press release that had some pretty cool pictures of the preview event that they had, where they brought people out, showed them the PS5, some really cool statues, photo ops, all of this. It's fun stuff there, especially for fans of the Spider-Man franchise. But the biggest thing here, from what I could tell, is yes, New York in general, much larger. Traversal is way faster with the wingsuit and stuff, things that weren't necessarily possible on the PS4 due to that mechanical hard drive, as they themselves definitely continue to hype up that SSD like they did with Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, which had its own mixed results, we'll say, when it came to PC. I am still curious about some of the side missions that were mentioned, as it appears they're more robust now, but I do wonder if they kind of fall into a similar feel of almost monotony at times when you've done so many of them and you just kind of go around filling out the map just to kind of fill out the map. But according to IGN, they actually got sidetracked a number of times from the main part, the main quest you're supposed to be doing, the main mission, just because the side quests were fairly interesting. Seems like there are some that are set up specifically for Peter and some that are set up specifically for Miles. So I wonder if there are going to be some story implications in there, maybe some really fun offshoot stories, very small ones, but can give a bit more to the character and some of the background. But I think my favorite part, and it's a little thing, but these details definitely add to the overall experience. The fast travel is really cool. So there's no camera cuts, basically. You zoom out from the map, you pick where you want to go, and then it zooms back in, and it continues your momentum. So you don't just, for example, drop down as Peter or Miles just standing there waiting for you to move them. It seems like you drop down and they're like on their wingsuit flying around. So the idea of Spider-Man obviously is momentum, and it doesn't like just have you drop in no momentum. You just get rolling right along. So really, really cool stuff there by Insomniac, and I'm all for it. I'm ready to jump into Spider-Man 2. It feels like it's been a long time since they had it revealed to us, but at this point, the more I see, the more excited I am. So I think at this point, I'm basically done checking out any of the Spider-Man 2 coverage, outside of reviews, of course, with the scores and all that. That'll go up and some impressions there, but I'm kind of on like media blackout now when it comes to the story, because I think there's gonna be some really cool twists and turns. So looking forward to that one next month when it releases on the 20th. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, have you purchased a copy of Grand Theft Auto 5 before? Oh no, 33% they say they haven't. It's never gonna end. You know what would be great is if we get Grand Theft Auto 5 on the next system, Nintendo continues to push Mario Kart 8, and we get a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Plus and a Grand Theft Auto 5 double pack. That would rule over every single sales charts ever invented. Now, it is amazing to me that there's still 33% of people who voted here who have not bought Grand Theft Auto 5. I feel like most of us have bought it at some point, but I guess you could also say, well, I downloaded it when I went to a subscription service. That's fair. Or maybe you just play Grand Theft Auto Online or something, and you're like, I just use that part of it, and I don't really play GTA 5 at all. But still, it's just so many of these copies have sold. I think most of us have had at least some experience with it, and I think basically all of us are probably ready for GTA 6 at this point. So cross my fingers for a huge out-of-nowhere reveal during the Game Awards in December. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Michael, who says, Nintendo just showed a willingness to listen to fans by remaking Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door. Hopefully, this signals an overall shift back for the series to its turn-based RPG roots. It very well could. I think what this signals is Nintendo is willing to listen to fans of Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, that they will give them $60 for the remake. I mean, that's what it is. Nintendo sees an opportunity. They can remake this game and charge $60 for it, and it'll probably do pretty well. At least I assume it will. I am curious if it outsells Origami King. I feel like Thousand Year Door would have to do like 4 to 4.5 million to handily outsell Origami King, or at least enough to send a message to Nintendo. But I'm sure they've calculated this and figured out that there is that nostalgia in play. So it'll be interesting to see, I'll say, when the next Paper Mario game, the brand new one, because they'll do another one after how Origami King sold, the direction they take that when it comes to the battle system, the progression, all of that. Because I feel like Origami King was at least a step in the right direction after what they had on the Wii U, but will they ever make a return to that full-on turn-based RPG setup. I guess we'll see. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Where's Unity with this odd response on Twitter saying they have a plan maybe this week to reveal? Do you think there's anything they can do to turn all this around? You know, with that one. And also, what about Nintendo with their next system, maybe getting Baldur's Gate 3? Do you think that special thanks section signals anything like that? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.